companies like Uber and Amazon, they were organically built with this mindset. But those are just a few such companies. Most companies, many of you here in the audience, represent enterprises that were not organically built. Over time, in fact, probably in the last 5 years, you've been forced to collect a lot of data. I call this needing to have machine learning by duress, right? Most of the people that I meet have to do it. They don't know how to do it. So what are some of the, and what we're seeing is data science is going in and kind of there's a lot of confusion about where does data science end, where does AI become. So can you talk about the non-organic companies and how they go about doing this?
Yeah, I think that first and foremost it's about picking what I call the low-hanging fruit. There are lots of business problems that are easily dealt with by using machine learning systems and by using AI. I think that it's important not to get involved in very complex decision making and try to do that. Uber, Amazon, yeah, they figure that out, but that's because they really started on this path quite a long time ago. But for new entrants, it's really about identifying core business problems that today are hard to solve. But where you have lots of data, yeah? You can imagine an online shoe seller selling shoes with free returns. What do people do? They buy 2 or 3 pairs, different sizes. They return those sizes that do not fit. And you look at that and say, wow, that's a business problem I have there. But you also have a lot of data. All the returns are valuable data, because now you can learn not only your individual customers' shoe sizes, but you can also learn about how different brands they run, small or normal or large. So that's a small example of solving a really pressing business problem by basically gathering the data. And I bet that a lot of companies would consider things like return data like something that they throw away, not really use.
So this is a very important problem, sort of comment, because traditional companies will develop products and services, and machine learning is not something to develop. Rather, by looking at what the need of the market is, figuring out the important needs to be able to deploy it. How does a traditional company proceed? What do you do if you're a company without machine learning expertise?
Yeah, so first of all, fortunately, there's now a lot of machine learning services available both on Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services. I built the one on Amazon Web Services. And there's also on Google and other cloud providers. They offer these services. There's also lots of companies that offer frameworks and solutions based on these cloud services. And that's really one path to take. One path one have to be very careful by taking is to basically hire a lot of data scientists to do the job.
Mental note this. This is super important with the frenzy of let's hire 100 data scientists, therefore our problem is solved. Please continue. Yeah. That's very important.
I think it's very important to understand that it's the computer that needs to do the job here. So very recently, a consulting company stopped by and gave me a presentation. They put up a slide and they had 3 big boxes on was the architecture. And the first box said data ingestion, basically the data lake. And I get that. I need one of those. We need data. Then it had the second box was data processing and machine learning. I get that too. We need that. And the third box was something like advanced visualization. And I'm like, when I ingest all my data, I process all my data, that third box should really be integration with my IT systems. It should not be for some data scientist to sit and look at some graphing and show it to his or her boss and then take it that way around. You're talking about software that needs to integrate into the IT systems.
Exactly. And I recently wrote a piece that I'm meeting, I've probably met about 50 or 60 what are people, startups that call themselves AI companies, but they're primarily data science companies. And if you put your algorithm on NVIDIA, just because it's running on the GX1, that doesn't make it an AI company. So there's a real distinction between analyzing data and having the machine understand what to look for. Because the real promise is to be able to identify things that we don't know and open paths. So let's move on to where you are now, Unity, a very different play. And maybe if you can just describe what Unity does and what you do there, we can focus on that.
Yeah, Unity is a very last year we had about 16 billion downloads. We have about 40% market share in mobile gaming, somewhat more in console, and we are a leading platform for VR and AR. We have well over 700 million monthly active users, and we run on 2.6 billion unique devices. So you have heard about Amazon, you have heard about Uber, you probably have not heard about Unity, but I bet that you have one or more games or apps on your phone that's written on Unity, and I'm very sure that your kids have many.
So these stats that you heard, just to refresh it in your mind, somewhere about 1 billion active users per day. If every active user has multiple variables, that's multiple billion pieces of data per day. And that gamer plays every day, right? These are numbers that will overshadow Instagram and Facebook undoubtedly. So how do enterprises interact with Unity?
So Unity is more than a gaming platform. It's really a what you would call a modern user interface. It's 3D, you can move things around in it, you can create very, very advanced user interfaces that way. You can also integrate with VR and AR, and most importantly, actually, you can create simulations that are of very high visual quality. So I could implement a simulator for a self-driving car because I can create lots of scenarios in front of me of pedestrians and bicyclists and cars driving around me without ever having to drive the car on a real street. At least I can go maybe 89% of the way in a simulator before I actually take my car on a real road. And that's just because you can create a highly movie-like, realistic experience. And that's just one example.
Excellent. That is about Unity. Now, as we shift into probably the question in your mind that you're all thinking is, why now? Why AI now? Right? AI is nothing new, 67 years. It's been in academia, we've known about it, it has had very different flavors and lives. We're facing now the opportunity of knowing consumers and the drive to understand consumers. So Danny, can you talk a little bit about the sort of the link between AI, machine learning, and consumer experience and what we're trying to achieve here?
Yeah, I think actually first I want to take a very quick step back and say why now? And why now is really just a matter of compute power. Yeah? So a Cray 2 supercomputer in the 80s, the fastest one in the 80s, 2 gigaflops. Yeah? Deep Blue, who beat the world champion, Garry Kasparov, in chess, 12 gigaflops. Yeah? The computer in my garage, my hobby computer in my garage, 40 teraflops. Yeah? And that was actually 20 teraflops last year, just doubled. Yeah? When you get up into teraflops, you now have